Welcome, Tommy. Thanks so much for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books.
Hi, well, thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here.
Awesome. As we were just chatting, I feel like this has been in the calendar for so long. So I'm just so excited to finally talk to you
I
about your
know.
book.
I mean, it does feel like time is just crawling by.
Yeah. How has it been having a book come out now? I mean, it's coming out in August, but I feel like this whole pandemic, I don't know. How has it been for you?
Well, it's a debut, so I haven't been through this process before, and to go through it during COVID and the lockdowns, I can't even. I don't know what the normal would have been like anyway, and I can't imagine this is it though. This is not. It's a strange time, and it's a sad time, and it's just. It's very strange for me to have something so important to me and so thrilling happening in the middle of something so terrible. I mean, just so terrible to the world, and I don't know. The emotions are kind of all over the place, really.
That sounds about right for basically everybody
Right.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to talk to somebody who's like, I feel like my emotions are totally in check and things are great. So anyway,
Good for them.
no, I'm kidding. I will not find that person, but
Oh, I thought
I
you,
said I'm
okay.
waiting. I'm holding my breath, in other words. Never
Yeah,
mind.
yeah.
um, can you please tell listeners what Before You Go is about and also what inspired you to write it?
Yeah, so the before you go, I think, well, actually, I can answer both with one, starting with one place. So I think what inspired me to write it, and I think what it's kind of ultimately about, at least thematically, are three questions that I found myself asking myself as a human and also as a writer. The first was, why does life sometimes feel so hard, even when it seems like it shouldn't? And the second was, is there anything we can do about it? And the third was, if not, then what? And I found myself honestly kind of just ruminating on those questions, again, as a writer, but also as a human. And the book started to grow out of that. What I call the vignettes or the interludes, which are the smaller chapters between the main narrative, Elliot Chance's narrative, those really started to pop up in response to those questions. And so I think thematically, that's what it's about. As far as the story goes, the main narrative is about uh, a character named Elliot, who we start with in his childhood, and then we spend most of our time with him in his 20s. And it's about his struggle with those questions to some extent. And then interspersed in Elliot's story are smaller, what I call vignettes, that are more fantastical, more fanciful about the what happened before we all got here, and how did it happen, and what happens after we leave, and what's happening in the future with regard to these questions. But I hope it all ties together pretty well by the end.
It works. You pulled it off.
Thank you. Thank you.
um, how much of Elliot's childhood mirrors your own? Like, did you have a brother? Did you ever get teased? Did you see monsters? Like, just how much of your own life did you inject into this narrative?
Well, the short answer is zero. It's all fiction. It's not my story. Um, but certainly I stole things here or there. So I did grow up in Connecticut, and I have lived in Manhattan. So it's made it a little bit easier for me to describe things because I had experienced them personally. Um, and I think, emotionally, I didn't have to reach too far to not just tap into Elliot's story, but Sasha's and Banner's, two other main characters. Um, I feel certain emotional kinship with all three of them on different levels.
So, explain to me how you got here writing your debut novel at this point in your life. So, I know you've worked on short films, and I watched your film Maneuver, which was
Oh,
really,
you did?
I did, yeah. I thought that was really cool.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I will look at chess in a whole new way from now on. Uh, and you went to law school. So, to just give me the like quick rundown of when you did what and how you ended up pursuing writing and film. And I know you won some award at Nantucket Film Festival. So how did we get here?
Yeah, it's been a journey, and it's still being a journey. So yeah, I went to law school, kind of in my 20s, a couple years after college, and I've been practicing law for a long time. That's my job, that's my career, and that's how I've paid my rent. So I've been doing that for a long time, and but writing has always been that passion. Always, I mean, I can almost say always, really. It's I've been fiddling with writing in one form or another since I was a teenager. So whether it started with, poetry or just fanciful stuff. And then, law school and early legal career takes up pretty much all of your brain. But I think in my early 30s, I started to get back into the writing a bit. And I started experimenting with both longer form fiction and also with screenwriting. And it just kind of kept growing. Like the passion had never gone away, and it just kind of kept growing and growing. And I was able to start balancing my career, my legal career, with my writing passion, which, I always kind of hoped would become a writing career, but you never count on that. You just keep going and you hope. And then I started writing some long form fiction in my early 30s, but then I kind of went into screenwriting for a bit and actually learned a lot about story and structure and things in that endeavor. And then came back into long form fiction to write this book. So I'm kind of doing both now. I've been doing both now for a number of years, but it has been a long journey, and it's not over. This is hardly the end of any kind of journey. This is, we'll see where this all goes, but I can't tell you how exciting it is to, after, many years of kind of balancing these two things, to have this be coming out so soon. It's amazing.
It's exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's awesome. And you're a really great writer. I mean, you write, like you reference poetry, but your prose is very poetic. I feel like even the way you describe thing like a rainstorm or taking, not mopping up leaves, raking leaves. This is when you can tell I'm from New York City. I'm trying to find like a good passage. I should have marked one, but I don't know. Here, I'm just going to read as like an example. Here, wait, actually, I thought I had, well, I'll just do like one of the beginning of Elliots. The leaves fall in a mad rush, an unruly circus of yellow, orange, and red hurled down from the trees by a mutinous wind. It's easy to get lost in it. I stand at the center of our little front yard, staring up at the long-limbed giants in the roiling cauldron of sky, my eyes filled with color, my ears with the sweep of air through the branches. The sharp scent of ozone heralds distant lighting. Nothing else exists, and a long moment passes before I remember who I am or what I'm doing out here beneath the front edge of an autumn storm. I am Elliot Chance. I'm 9 years old. I'm catching leaves with my brother. Like, what a great introduction. Like, how do you not want to keep reading? Like, who is Elliot? What's his story? Why are we reading about him? Who's his brother? And just the language. I mean, you really like capture scenery so well and emotion, and then this whole like life and death. I mean, you go deep in here. This is a lot,
It's a lot. It was a lot to write.
I bet. So something must have happened, not to just like delve into your private life. And I know it's not your story, but just, have you always had this relationship with sort of philosophy in a way, or pondering the end, or have you lost somebody close to you? Or like, usually there's some like event, I feel like, when people are grappling so closely or feeling so closely the fact that life is so finite. Like, how did you come to this?
I wouldn't say there was an event that spurred this novel on. I mean, I have lost people that I've loved. Nothing, I mean, people who were older, like my dad. Nobody in a tragic youthful accident, something like that. So, I guess what you'd call more normal death and aging and that kind of stuff, but it still breaks your heart. But I wouldn't say that spurred this book on. I don't know. I think it's my own experience with what I think a lot of us feel for any reason or no reason, which is just moments of sadness, moments of emptiness. So it's not, I don't think it's really necessarily about death, but of course death is such an integral part of life, and the fact that it is finite makes it so important. But I think it's about that feeling, those feelings of wanting more, of feelings like something might be missing. I'm pretty familiar with that. I don't know why, but I am. And I think as far as, pondering, and I've been doing that, gosh, I mean, my whole life. I think I've probably arguably think too much, and I ruminate a lot. And so whether it's writing myself or just reading philosophy and studying poetry, and I think hopefully all those things come out at least a little bit in this book. And I think those influences hopefully show themselves because they are important for me.
It's true. I didn't mean to imply the whole book was about death. I was just
Oh,
trying
no.
to, I just
Yeah.
feel like, and, you know, perhaps it's a wrong sort of hypothesis that a deep understanding of, you know, I don't know, it's almost like an extra sensitivity almost to emotion and the way we experience life and all of that. And it doesn't have to come from something horrible happening. Some people are just like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe I shouldn't have even
No,
implied.
no, it's a totally fair question. And of course, I think often that is what triggers it, right? You lose something or someone, and that triggers all this heartbreaking open and all these emotions and all these thoughts and questions and ponderings. But for me, I guess they just come. I don't know why they just come anyway. What's it all for? Why are we here? You know, what are we doing? Where are we going? All those things.
Do you feel that the fact that you think about all those things, does it make you make decisions differently? Like, do you keep all that in mind when you're making life decisions or small decisions or big decisions? You know, is it front of mind, or is it's sort of just like hovering over you as a framework?
That's interesting. I'm sorry?
As a framework, you know, for how you live your life.
I mean, that's interesting. I guess I don't know. It's probably changed. It probably changes back and forth. I think probably sometimes it's very front of mind, and other times not at all. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough. I guess it would depend on which decision and which point in my life I was making and whether. But there are times where certainly. So silly example, but I applied to law school. So I spent a year in New York after college, and I applied to law school. But for whatever reason, I knew I didn't want to go right away. I knew I needed another year to myself, and so I deferred a year and went out to the beach in Southern California and lived and taught test prep and just really enjoyed myself for a year and just lived for a year. And that was a decision where these kinds of questions were very front of mind. I was thinking, I need to live a year before I get on this, this train. So sometimes yes, other times no, it's more, blindly reaching out in the dark for the next step.
I feel like I'm like you in that I'm very aware. I feel like, I've always thought about it, but I've had a lot of sudden deaths and tragic deaths and 9/11 loss. And I've just had like a lot of stuff, but I feel, for me at least, it's very front of mind. Like there are many decisions, career decisions, and, whether to leave my marriage. Like I have all these big decisions that I'm always like, you only live once. Like, right. And it's very front of mind for me. So I'm just like interested in how other people, because you can't do it in like, should I go to King Cullen before or after this podcast? But I mean, right. Should I keep marketing Pepperidge Farm cookies, or should I, write a novel? That's like a totally different thing.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I actually applaud that in you, but it's also kind of exhausting, right? Like I find it kind of exhausting to be constantly thinking about the big questions and how I should be living. Like that just gets very tiring. So hopefully sometimes you're just like, I'm going to do it for the hell of it. But yeah, I hear you. I get it.
I mean, I think once you're on certain paths, as long as you like I didn't mean to imply I think about it every second, but I feel like to get yourself and keep yourself on a path that's going to ultimately lead you to the life you want, you have to this is sounding so hokey now, I'm sorry. You have to like reassess every so often based on those terms. But
no, I agree. I mean, I personally agree. It's an intentional life. You want to live with intent. And arguably there are people who say, no, just let the wind carry you. But I'm kind of like you. I think everyone's different. I'm kind of like you. I think I live with more intention as well. Yeah.
So writing about depression, when you were writing this book, did you look to other books about people who had gone through periods of time where they were depressed or had feelings like that, like Andrew Solomon, or like big, books that, or group therapy, or even support group, all of that? How much research versus just intuition and introspection? What was the balance?
Much more the latter. I mean, I remember it's a few years ago now, but I remember reading things like The Bell Jar or The Hours, or more fictional. I did certainly some research. There's a very powerful movie called The Bridge about people who killed themselves off the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. But I didn't do heavy, intense kind of clinical research. And that's not what I'm trying. I wasn't trying to write about that. I mean, I'm not an expert. the book doesn't even use the word depression because I think it's taken on a clinical term that I'm not qualified to really speak on. So this book is not so much about Elliot. I mean, he may be depressed. I mean, I'll let a doctor decide that, a fictional doctor. But I was more interested in just the sadness and the emptiness he was feeling. Whether it's depression or not, I don't know. So I guess it came more from my own kind of instincts or feelings, or and other people I've known. But there was some research in there, certainly.
I'll stop being a psychologist for fictional characters.
Oh no, I mean, no, it's fair, right? Because
as I diagnose, anyway,
yeah.
I feel like a lot of those empty feelings. I mean, depression, like I don't know. I didn't go through the DSM. It's true for the clinical.
Well, no, but it's funny, right? Because, or it's not funny, but I mean, when I was little, we used to say depressed just to mean sad or down or having the blues. But I think today it means a lot more than that. It's much more complicated. So, sort of like. But no, I think it's fair to say, no, of course, colloquially, yeah, depression that's what Elliott's feeling, depressed, sure.
So, have you written since this book? Is writing something you do to sort out your own feelings? Like, is it something you do every day for fun? Are you working on another project? Like, did your relationship to changing write after this book? That was like 10 questions, but.
Yeah, that's great. I am writing. I am working on the next book, intently. Did my relationship change? No, I mean, I'm still kind of cranking the way I have been and learning and trying to grow. It does, it's nice to finally break through. I mean, it's more than nice. It's fantastic, and it makes you feel great. And it is, it's a great vote of confidence, no matter what happens with the book. But at the same time, you don't want to let that go to your head. I want to keep learning and keep realizing how much I have to learn. And so that's, I think, all staying the same. I do write personal journals and poetry a little bit here and there for my personal stuff, but not on a terribly regular basis. But yeah, so I'm pretty deep in the next fiction project. We'll see where it goes.
Have you shown the book yet to like colleagues at your law firm, if you work at a law firm, I know, or like friends, close friends, anybody who was really surprised by it, or like what have some of the reactions been? I mean, obviously, I'm sure they all love it, but I mean, was there a part of you that you feel like was represented in the book, or just like thoughts and feelings or whatever that you feel in any way uncomfortable sharing, or that people responded in a way you weren't hoping for, or any of that, or not really?
Well, it's only been shared at this point with, I don't know, a couple dozen people maybe, because we're still early. But and for the most part, the reaction's been amazing. Again, I stress to people, especially people close to me, that it's not me, it's not my story. And I think most people have just focused on the hopefully the work of art, the work itself. And some people have been watching this journey of mine, this writing journey, for a long time now, so they are a little less surprised. And others who haven't really seen this yet there's some shocked looks out there, which is kind of fun. I also, it also is nice. I feel very lucky for whatever failure I've had in the years before this, because I think some of the stuff I wrote earlier, while I'm proud of it, and I'm talking more about fiction now as opposed to some of the screenplays, but some of the fiction, I was proud of it at the time, but it just wasn't quite ready. It just wasn't there. And but you keep growing, you keep learning, and then this book I really love, and so I'm very glad that for most people the first thing they get to see is this. So the reactions so far have been great. We'll see how it goes, but yeah.
I feel like a lot of people are looking for great screenwriters now. I feel like for so many books, people are like needing screenwriters to adapt them and all the rest. But now, since you already have award-winning screenplay, you could just adapt your own book.
Possibly, and we have a great film agent who's pitching the book around right now, and we talked about it. I mean, I think we would love to get very experienced screenwriter to adapt this. I think it's going to be a cool challenge to adapt it. And I like my screenwriting. I'm very proud of it, but I haven't been doing it for 20 years. So if we could get, an established screenwriter to do it, that would be thrilling. Yeah.
And just tell me the moment, like when you first sold this book, or when you agreed on, when the first like biggest piece of great news related to this book, like what was that moment like? Like, did you hear about it on the phone or email, or like were you jumping up and down? Like,
yeah, no, it was head spinning, honestly. I've been writing for a while. This book in particular, I've been working on for basically 3 years. So about a year of creation and crafting and structuring, and then 2 years of writing. And then I took a month off, just did nothing. And then I started sending out query letters. I didn't have an agent at the time. And it was head spinning because I think in about 4 weeks, I have this written down somewhere, but I think in about 4 weeks, I went from my first call with my now agent to the deal with Harper. And it was incredibly fast for whatever reason. And it all went great. But I didn't sleep well for 4 weeks. It was just that crazy it was just crazy. So I guess, but to answer your question, there were a lot of big moments in there. But obviously the two biggest ones were when Doug, my agent, first got on the phone and just told me how much he loved it and said, I definitely want to be a part of this. And that was enormous to me, just enormous. I mean, because he was one of the people I really wanted to work with. I mean, there was a handful of people at the top of my list, and he was one of them. So that was already, I don't think I jumped up and down, but I was pretty excited. And then 4 weeks later, when Sarah and Harper said, yeah, we want it. I mean, yeah, that whole month was just insane.
Wow. So exciting. Do you have any advice to aspiring authors?
There's so much, right? But I guess if I had to distill it and be pithy, I would say, at least for me, what's been really important to me at a high level is to keep learning and keep persisting. And I can't tell you how important that's been for me in my journey.
I mean, you don't have to be that pithy. You could expand a little bit.
Well, there's so much. I mean, I think I wrote something years ago that I really love, but now, years later I look back on it and I realize it's so green. I mean, so I think keep learning. And I don't have a formal MFA, so my learning was it was informal. Some great writing workshops, some great writing seminars, but I just kept doing that. And I also kept learning the way I have my whole life, which is through books. I'll expand on that by saying there are 2 key books that I think that I can share with you that for me, they're just very critical. One is The Art of Fiction by John Gardner. And then the other is actually it's focused on screenwriting, but it's really for any story. It's called Story by Robert McKee. And those 2 books had a profound influence on how I write, how I tell stories. And it was a matter of, continuing to learn and never thinking that I knew what I was doing. And then the persistence, you can't say it enough. You can say it 3 times, because I think for a lot of people I know trying to create, including me now, you're going to continually hit doubt and those places where you don't know what you're doing or don't know how to fix something, and you just keep going. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Thank you for this amazing book. So beautifully written, so thought-provoking, and I'm really excited to see it launch into the world.
Thank you very much.
I'll be rooting for you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. It's great to be here.
Okay.